I am Ariana Powell, 34 years old. My father stood at the head of the table, his wine glass raised high, his voice cutting through the chatter of 55 guests packed into the restaurant. To our daughter, he said, his words booming with pride. The one who has always been there, shining bright, making us proud. All eyes turned toward me, and for a brief, foolish moment, I thought he meant me. But his gaze locked on my sister Lily, standing across the room in paint-stained jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She is the heart of this family, he continued, his smile widening. Then he turned to me and his expression shifted. And her, he said, pointing directly at me. This family has never gotten a thing from her. The room went silent. 55 pairs of eyes burned into me. My mother Susan sat beside him, nodding along, her silence louder than any words. Lily shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. My chest tightened, my breath catching in my throat. 7 years. $165,000. Every sacrifice I had made to keep them afloat, erased in a single sentence. I could have screamed. I could have listed every payment, every sleepless night, every time I had put their needs above my own. But instead, I smiled, stood, and walked out. They thought I was nothing to this family. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I sat in my car, the engine off, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The silence was deafening after the chaos of the party. I stared at the dashboard, my mind racing back through 7 years of carrying them. It had started small. My mother called one afternoon, her voice tight with worry. "We cannot make the mortgage," she said. "I just retired from the bank, and your father's auto shop is not bringing in enough. Can you help?" I had transferred the money without hesitation. $55,000 over 7 years, wired directly to their account to keep the house they loved. Then came the credit cards. Groceries, utilities, things they claimed were emergencies but never explained. $40,000 over the years, my card linked to theirs, covering expenses they racked up without a second thought. I had told myself it was temporary, that they just needed time to get back on their feet. But temporary became permanent. And then there was Lily, my younger sister, the artist who lived downtown in a studio I funded. $12,000 over 7 years for rent, supplies, canvases, even ads for her exhibitions. She would call, breathless with excitement about her next big project, and I would transfer the cash. My parents adored her. They framed her paintings in their living room, bragged about her talent at every family gathering. But they never mentioned the money I sent, never acknowledged the hours I worked late into the night to cover their bills, never saw me. I thought I was doing it out of love, out of duty. But tonight, sitting in that room, watching my father toast Lily while dismissing me in front of everyone, I saw the truth. They had not just taken my money, they had taken my worth. I replayed the moment over and over, my father's voice, confident and proud, calling Lily the heart of the family, my mother's nod, her complicit silence. And Lily, standing there in her paint-stained jeans, saying nothing, not a word of defense, not a flicker of protest. I had driven 2.5 hours from Seattle to be here, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this night would be different, that they would see me, but they never would. Not as long as I kept playing the role of the invisible daughter, the one who gave everything and asked for nothing in return. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Lily. "Can we talk?" I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen, then set the phone down without responding. Not yet, not now. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, the restaurant fading in my rearview mirror. The drive back to Seattle stretched ahead of me, 2.5 hours to process what had just happened. But all I could think about was the weight of those 7 years. $165,000. $7,000 for tonight's party alone. And they had the audacity to say I had given them nothing. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were still shaking. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar warmth of home wrapping around me. Ethan was there, sitting on the couch with a mug of tea, his calm presence a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. He looked up as I walked in, and I could see the question in his eyes. I sank onto the couch beside him, the weight of the night pouring out. I told him about the party, about my father's toast, about standing there in front of 55 people while he dismissed me. I did not repeat his exact words. They still stung too much. But Ethan understood. He always did. "They do not see you," he said, his voice low but steady. "You have carried them for 7 years, and they act like it is nothing. You do not owe them your silence." His words hit something deep inside me. I had spent years hiding my sacrifices, thinking they would notice on their own. But they had not. Not my parents. Not Lily. And they never would unless I made them see. Ethan leaned closer, his hand resting on mine. You deserve to be seen, Ariana. Tell your story. Let people know what you have done. I hesitated. Going public felt like betraying family, airing dirty laundry for the world to see. But the pain of being invisible was worse. I was done swallowing it. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. My fingers trembled as I typed, each word a release of years of pent-up frustration. 7 years. $55,000 for their mortgage. $40,000 for their credit cards and bills. $12,000 for my sister's art studio. $7,000 for tonight's party. $165,000 total. And tonight, in front of 55 people, my father said I have given this family nothing. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. My thumb hovered over the post button. This was it. Once I hit send, there was no going back. Ethan squeezed my hand. You are not doing this for revenge, he said. You are doing it because you deserve to be acknowledged. I hit post. The screen lit up with my truth, raw and unfiltered, for all 2,500 of my followers to see. Notifications started pouring in almost immediately. A college friend messaged. You paid all that? That is incredible. A coworker commented. You are a saint for doing this. Your family is lucky to have you. My Aunt Claire, who lived across the country, sent a private message. I had no idea, sweetheart. You are stronger than they will ever understand. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of doubt. I scrolled through the reactions, my pulse racing, relief mixed with adrenaline. My family had not seen the post yet. They were probably still at the restaurant, wrapping up the party, oblivious to the truth now spreading across social media. I set my phone down, exhaling slowly. Ethan pulled me into a hug, his arms steady around me. You did the right thing, he said. I nodded, but a knot formed in my stomach. I had just laid my family's secrets bare for the world to see. There was no taking it back. The morning would bring consequences, and I was not sure I was ready for them. But for the first time in 7 years, I felt like I had taken control of my own story. And that, I told myself, had to be enough. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. The screen glowed with notifications, too many to count. I reached for it, my eyes still heavy with sleep, and saw the flood. Comments, messages, shares. My Instagram post had exploded overnight. Over 300 reactions, dozens of messages from people I had not spoken to in years. The truth I had buried for so long was now out in the open, and there was no pulling it back. Ethan stirred beside me, his hand finding mine. How are you feeling? He asked, his voice soft. I did not know how to answer. Relief, fear, guilt, they all tangled together in my chest. I am not sure, I said finally. But I cannot undo it now. He squeezed my hand. You do not need to undo it. You told the truth. That is enough. I sat up, scrolling through the messages. Most were supportive, friends and acquaintances expressing shock and admiration. But there were a few that made my stomach twist. Cousins asking if it was really that bad. Neighbors from my parents' street sending vague, uncomfortable responses. And then I saw it. A missed call from my mother. Then another. And another. 25 missed calls in total. 15 from my mother. 8 from my father. 2 from Lily. My voicemail was full. I did not listen to them. Not yet. Instead, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and necessary. I opened my banking app, my hands steady despite the pounding in my chest. It was time to stop carrying them. I found the recurring transfer for the mortgage. $55,000 over 7 years, wired every month without fail. I clicked Cancel Recurring Transaction. The confirmation appeared on the screen. Payment stopped. I exhaled, a weight lifting. Next, the credit cards. My card was linked to their accounts for emergencies, but those emergencies had turned into a $40,000 tab. I navigated to the settings and removed my card from both accounts. Link removed. The screen flashed. Then came the party bill. $7,000 for their anniversary celebration, still pending in my account. I found the charge and disputed it, canceling the payment. The restaurant would come after them now, not me. Finally, Lily's studio. $12,000 over 7 years to keep her dream alive. I opened the payment app, found the recurring transfer, and stopped it. Transaction ended. I stared at the screen, my throat tight. I had just severed every financial tie to my family. They would notice soon. The mortgage payment would bounce. The credit card charges would decline. The restaurant would call demanding payment. Lily's landlord would lock her out. The fallout would be immediate and brutal. But I was done being their safety net. My phone rang again. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Then Lily. I silenced the calls, setting my phone face down on the table. Ethan came into the kitchen, pouring coffee. "They are calling," he said. Not a question. I nodded. "They found out." He handed me a mug, his expression calm. "What are you going to do?" I took a sip, the warmth grounding me. "Nothing. Let them figure it out." The calls continued throughout the day. By noon, my voicemail was full again. I finally listened to one, my mother's voice shaking with panic. "Ariana, the mortgage payment did not go through. The bank is calling. What happened? Please call us back." Another from my father, his tone sharp. "You canceled the restaurant bill? They are threatening to sue us. What are you doing?" And Lily, her voice breaking. My studio rent bounced. The landlord locked me out. "I have a gallery show next week. Please, Ariana, I need your help." I deleted the voicemails, one by one. Their panic was palpable, but I felt no urge to respond. Not yet. They had spent 7 years taking without question. Now they could spend a few days figuring out what it felt like to stand on their own. Ethan sat beside me, his presence steady. "This is hard," he said. "I know, but you are doing the right thing." I leaned into him, my chest tight. "I hope so." By evening, the Instagram post had gone viral within my network. Over 500 reactions now, comments pouring in from people I barely knew. Some praised me for standing up. Others questioned whether I should have aired family business so publicly. A few accused me of being cruel, of abandoning my parents in their time of need. I ignored the criticism, focusing on the messages of support. They kept me grounded when doubt crept in. That night, I sat on my couch, my laptop open, reviewing my finances. For the first time in 7 years, my salary was entirely mine. No mortgage payments, no credit card bills, no studio rent. The numbers stared back at me, a stark reminder of how much I had given. $165,000. Gone. But as I closed the laptop, I felt something shift. Not regret, relief. I had spent 7 years pouring myself into people who did not see me. Now I was choosing myself. And that, I realized, was not cruelty. It was survival. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Lily. "Please, just talk to me." I stared at it, my thumb hovering. Then I set the phone down, unanswered. I was not ready. Not yet. The consequences of my actions were unfolding, and I knew the hardest part was still ahead. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. And I was not going to let them pull me back under. 3 days after I stopped the payments, the silence broke. My doorbell rang on a Tuesday evening, sharp and insistent. I was in my Seattle apartment, reviewing code for a project at work, trying to keep my mind occupied. I checked the peephole and felt my stomach drop. My parents stood on the porch, their faces drawn and tired under the dim light. I had not spoken to them since the party, and now they were here. I opened the door, bracing myself. "Ariana," my mother said, her voice soft but strained. "We need to talk, please." My father stood behind her, his hands in his pockets, his usual confidence replaced by something I had never seen before. Uncertainty. I stepped aside, letting them in but keeping my distance. They sat on my couch, the same one where Ethan and I had talked through my decision. I remained standing, arms crossed. "We are sorry," my mother began, her hands twisting together. "We did not mean to hurt you at the party." "Your father," he misspoke. "He did not mean it the way it sounded." My father nodded, his jaw tight. "It was a celebration. Things got said in the moment. You took it the wrong way." His words landed like a slap. The wrong way. I had carried them for 7 years, and they were calling it a misunderstanding. I took a breath, my voice steady. 7 years. $165,000. $55,000 for your mortgage. $40,000 for your credit cards and bills. $12,000 for Lily's studio. $7,000 for your party. And you stood there in front of 55 people and said I gave this family nothing. My mother's eyes widened, her mouth opening, but I kept going. I paid for your house, your bills, her dreams, and you never once said thank you. My father shifted, his face hardening. "You are blowing this out of proportion," he said. We did not ask you to do all that. You offered. You chose to help. His words stung more than I expected. They had rewritten history, convinced themselves that my sacrifices were voluntary, not the result of their desperate calls and guilt-laden requests. I stared at him, my chest tight. I chose to help because you made me feel like I had no choice. Every call, every crisis. You made it sound like the family would fall apart without me. My mother leaned forward, tears welling in her eyes. We are family, Ariana. Families help each other. You cannot just walk away. I felt anger rise in my throat. Walk away? I gave you 7 years of my life. I put my own dreams on hold. I worked late nights to cover your bills while you paraded Lily around like she was the only one who mattered. My father stood, his voice sharp. You are being selfish. We are struggling now because of you. The restaurant is threatening to sue. The bank is calling about the mortgage. You have put us in a terrible position. I opened the door, the cool night air rushing in. I am done, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. You need to leave. My mother's face crumpled, tears spilling over, but my father's expression remained hard. You will regret this, he said, walking toward the door. Maybe, I replied. But that is my choice to make. They left, their footsteps heavy on the porch. I closed the door, the lock clicking into place, and leaned against it. My hands were shaking, but I felt something shift inside me. Not relief. Not yet. But a quiet strength I was just beginning to understand. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Can we meet? Just us. There is a coffee shop on Pine Street. Tomorrow at 3. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep the distance I had fought so hard to maintain. But another part was curious. I typed back. Okay. The next afternoon I walked into the coffee shop, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans and the hum of quiet conversations. Lily was already there, sitting in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a paper cup. She looked different, tired, her usual carefree energy replaced by something heavier. Ariana, she said as I sat down. I know things are bad. I did not realize how much you were doing. For me. For all of us. I stayed silent, waiting. She took a breath, her eyes meeting mine. The studio. $12,000 over 7 years. I got used to it. I should not have. I leaned back, my expression neutral. You were the daughter they loved, I said, my voice even. I paid for your dreams while they celebrated you and ignored me. Now it is your turn to figure it out. Her face flushed, guilt flickering across her features. They were proud of me. They thought you were okay, that you did not need the attention. You always seemed so strong. Her words confirmed what I had always known. Lily had been their golden child, and I had been the reliable one, the one who did not need praise because I always delivered. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her words hang in the air. I was strong because I had no choice, I said, but that does not mean I did not need to be seen. Lily looked down, her fingers tapping the cup. I am trying now, she said. The gallery dropped my show. I am working at a retail store to cover rent. It is not enough. She leaned forward, her voice breaking. I did not know how hard it was for you. I wanted to believe her, but years of being invisible held me back. She was not here to make things right. She was here because she was desperate. You will figure it out, I said, echoing my earlier words. You are talented. You always were. But I cannot carry you anymore. Lily stared at me, her expression a mix of confusion and resignation. She nodded slowly, stood, and walked out, her shoulders slumped. I watched her go, the coffee shop's warm light framing her retreating figure, and felt a pang of something. Not regret, but the ache of letting go. That night, I sat in my apartment, the weight of the past few days settling over me. My confrontation with my parents had been painful, but necessary. Lily's visit had confirmed what I already knew. They were not ready to see me. Not really. They were scrambling, panicking, trying to pull me back into the role I had played for so long. But I was done. The stress of it all was taking its toll. I had not been sleeping well, my mind racing with their voices, their accusations, their desperation. At work, I found myself staring at my screen, unable to focus. My manager noticed, pulling me aside. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded, forcing a smile. Just dealing with some family stuff. She gave me a sympathetic look. Take care of yourself, Ariana. We need you sharp. That night, Ethan found me sitting on the floor of my apartment, my back against the couch, staring at nothing. He sat beside me, his presence steady. "Talk to me," he said. "I am tired," I admitted. I thought cutting them off would feel freeing. And it does. But it also hurts. He put his arm around me. "That means you are human. You are allowed to feel both." His words settled over me, a reminder that I did not have to choose between strength and vulnerability. I could feel the pain of letting go and still know I had made the right choice. 6 months after I cut them off, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that my parents had sold the house. The home I had poured $55,000 into over 7 years was gone. A for sale sign had gone up in their front yard, the house I had saved from foreclosure now belonging to someone else. Without my monthly mortgage payments, they could not keep up. The bank's warnings had turned into action, and they had no choice but to sell. They moved to a small apartment in Renton, a suburb south of Seattle. I pictured my mother unpacking her things in a cramped one-bedroom, my father staring out a window that overlooked a parking lot instead of the garden he used to tend. It was not the life they had planned, but it was the one they had to face now. The same acquaintance told me more. My father's auto shop was struggling. Without the cushion of my financial support, every slow month hit harder. My mother had taken a part-time job at a grocery store, something she had never imagined doing after retirement. Lily's world had shifted too. The sister I had funded with $12,000 for her art studio was no longer painting. Her dream of gallery shows and critical acclaim had faded, replaced by the grind of a retail job. She worked at a home goods store downtown, folding linens and ringing up customers for minimum wage. The studio she had rented, once her creative sanctuary, was now leased to someone else. Her canvases, those vibrant pieces she had poured her heart into, were stacked in a storage unit, untouched. I did not feel satisfaction hearing this, just a quiet sadness for the life she had lost. But I also knew it was not my responsibility to save her. She had to learn what I had learned years ago, that dreams require sacrifice, and sometimes that sacrifice is your own. I had not spoken to any of them since the confrontation at my apartment and the coffee shop meeting with Lily. Their attempts to reach me had dwindled. No more frantic calls, no more desperate texts. They had finally stopped pushing, and I had found space to breathe. At work, I threw myself into my projects. I had been promoted to senior software engineer, a role I had been chasing for years but had always felt out of reach while my energy was drained by their needs. Now, with my focus entirely my own, I excelled. My manager praised my work during a team meeting. "Ariana has been driving our success this quarter," she said. I felt a surge of pride, not because I needed their validation, but because I had earned it on my own terms. Ethan and I had started planning our future. We talked about buying a house, taking trips we had put off for too long. My salary, once stretched thin by my family's demands, now funded savings accounts and dreams that were ours. On weekends, we hiked trails around Seattle, the crisp air and towering trees a reminder of the life I was building. One Saturday, as we stood at a viewpoint overlooking the city, Ethan turned to me. "You are different now," he said. "Lighter." I nodded, feeling the truth of it. I am not carrying them anymore. But the distance from my family was not without its pain. There were moments when I caught myself wondering how they were doing, if they had enough to eat, if my mother's knee was bothering her again. I would push the thoughts away, reminding myself that their struggles were not mine to fix. Dr. Ellen Morris, a therapist I had started seeing 2 months after the party, helped me navigate those feelings. "You are allowed to care about them and still protect yourself," she said during one session. "Those two things can coexist." Her words were a lifeline, giving me permission to feel the complexity of it all. One evening, I received an email. The subject line was blank, and the sender was Lily. I hesitated before opening it, my finger hovering over the screen. Inside was a short message. "Ariana, I have been thinking a lot about what you said. You were right. I took you for granted. We all did. I am not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I am sorry." I read it twice, searching for sincerity. There was pain in her words, that much was clear. But it was too late. The apology I had once craved, the acknowledgement I had spent years chasing, no longer held the power it once did. I closed the email without responding. It was not about punishing her. It was about protecting the peace I had fought so hard to find. That night, Ethan and I cooked dinner together, the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and laughter. We talked about our upcoming plans, a weekend trip to the coast, a new project I was leading at work. For the first time in years, My life felt full in a way that had nothing to do with sacrifice. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about the past 6 months. My parents had lost their house, Lily had lost her dream, and I had lost the weight of their expectations. It was not a fair trade, but it was the one we had all made. I did not know if they would ever truly understand what they had done, the years they had taken from me, but I was no longer waiting for that understanding. I had built something new, something that was entirely mine, and that was enough. The following week, I got another update. My father had closed his auto shop. The business he had run for over 30 years was gone, unable to survive without the financial buffer I had provided. He was looking for work now, applying for jobs he had never imagined he would need. My mother's part-time hours at the grocery store had increased, her days now filled with shifts she had thought were behind her. I felt a flicker of something when I heard. Not guilt, not exactly, but a recognition of how drastically their lives had changed. They had built their comfort on my back, and now that foundation was gone. They were learning, slowly and painfully, what it meant to stand on their own. And I was learning that letting them fall was not cruelty. It was the only way forward for all of us. 14 months after the night that changed everything, I stood in a small garden in Seattle, surrounded by soft lights strung between trees and the gentle hum of a summer evening. Ethan and I were getting married, not in a grand ballroom, but in an intimate space with 18 close friends, people who had seen me through the hardest year of my life and stood by me without judgment. The air smelled of jasmine and freshly cut grass, and my simple white dress moved softly in the breeze. Ethan stood at the altar, his eyes steady and warm, and I felt a peace I had not known was possible. My parents were not there, neither was Lily. I had not invited them, and we had not spoken in over a year. Their absence was a choice I had made deliberately, one that protected the life I was building. This day was mine, and I was not going to let their shadows darken it. The ceremony was short but meaningful. We exchanged vows beneath an arch of wildflowers, promising to build a life together rooted in honesty and mutual support. Ethan's hand in mine felt like the culmination of a journey I had fought so hard to take. As we kissed, our friends erupted in applause, and I felt tears prick my eyes. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of finally being seen, truly seen by the people who mattered. We danced under the string lights, the music soft and the laughter easy. My friend Rachel, who had known me since college, pulled me aside during a quiet moment. "You look happy," she said, her voice warm. Not just content, actually happy. I nodded, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am. She hugged me tightly, and I realized how far I had come from the woman who had walked out of that anniversary party 14 months ago. My career had flourished in ways I had not imagined. The promotion to senior software engineer had led to another opportunity, a lead role on a high-profile project that had just launched successfully. My manager had hinted at another promotion on the horizon, and my salary had increased enough that Ethan and I were looking at houses, real houses, not cramped apartments. Places where we could build a future together. The money I had once sent to my family, $165,000 over 7 years, was now funding dreams that were ours. A savings account for a down payment, plans for a honeymoon in Italy, small luxuries like weekend trips and dinners out without worrying about the cost. I had learned to spend on myself without guilt, to see my earnings as mine rather than a resource to be drained by others. As the evening wound down, I found myself standing alone for a moment, looking out at the garden. Ethan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I leaned into him, feeling the steadiness of his presence. How different my life is now. How much lighter I feel. He kissed the top of my head. "You chose yourself. That takes courage." 2 days after the wedding, a package arrived at our apartment. It was small, wrapped in brown paper, with no return address. I opened it carefully, my hands hesitant. Inside was a canvas, one of Lily's paintings. It was a landscape, soft blues and greens blending into a horizon that felt both familiar and distant. Tucked beneath it was a note in her handwriting. "Ariana, I painted this for you. I know I cannot undo the past, but I wanted you to have something that says I am trying. I hope you are happy, Lily." I stared at the painting, my chest tight. It was beautiful, the kind of work that had always made my parents so proud of her. But as I held it, I felt nothing but the weight of a gesture that came too late. I set the painting down, still in its wrapping, and placed it in the back of a closet. I did not hang it. I did not display it. I simply put it away, a relic of a life I had moved beyond. Ethan noticed but said nothing. He understood that some bridges, once burned, were not meant to be rebuilt. That night, we sat on our couch, a glass of wine in hand, talking about the future. We discussed the houses we had toured, the neighborhoods we liked, the life we wanted to build together. There was no mention of my family, no shadow of their expectations. Just us, planning a future that was entirely ours. I thought about my parents in their small apartment in Renton, my father no longer running his auto shop, my mother working shifts at a grocery store. I thought about Lily, folding linens at a retail store instead of painting in a studio. Their lives had changed drastically, and I knew some part of them blamed me for it. But I also knew that their struggles were the result of their own choices they had made when they took me for granted. Dr. Morris had told me something in our last session that stuck with me. You cannot save people who do not want to save themselves. You can only choose whether to drown with them or swim to shore. I had chosen to swim, and while the water had been rough, I had made it to solid ground. Setting boundaries had been the hardest thing I had ever done, but it had also been the most necessary. As I lay in bed that night, Ethan's steady breathing beside me, I reflected on the past 14 months. I had walked away from a family that did not see me, canceled payments that had drained me for 7 years, and built a life where I was valued. I had gotten married, surrounded by people who loved me for who I was, not what I could give them, and I had learned that happiness does not come from sacrifice. It comes from choosing yourself. The painting in the closet would stay there, unopened and unacknowledged, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Lily's apology, her gesture, they were too late to change what had been broken. I did not need her validation anymore. I had found my own. My parents would continue their lives in Renton, and Lily would continue hers in retail. And I would continue mine here, in a home I was building with Ethan, in a career I had earned, in a life that was finally, truly mine. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the past lift completely. I was not invisible. I was not taken for granted. I was Ariana Powell, and I had chosen myself, and that choice had set me free. That's Ariana's story. A 4-year-old woman who gave $165,000 over 7 years to keep her family afloat, only to be told in front of 55 people that she had given them nothing, who walked away, canceled every payment, and built a life where she was finally seen. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our community come together over stories like this. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Share it if you have ever been the invisible child in your family, the one who gave everything while someone else got all the credit and praise. And subscribe for more true stories about setting boundaries, choosing yourself, and learning that family does not mean you have to sacrifice your own happiness. One last thing. Have you ever financially supported family members for years, only to have your sacrifices dismissed or ignored? A parent, a sibling, someone who took your help for granted? Share your story in the comments. This is a safe space. And here's the most important question. Do you think Ariana should have invited her family to her wedding? Or was she right to protect her peace and keep them out of that moment? Drop a comment with your honest thoughts, because sometimes the hardest part of healing is knowing when to close the door permanently. Thanks for watching. Remember, giving everything to people who do not see you is not love. It is losing yourself. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. See you in the next one.